Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Renuka and with me is Anita Anand, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to US Vice President Kamala Harris over telephone. Discuss strengthening of India-US vaccine cooperation. Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla says India is working with several countries on targeted and temporary waiver under TRIPS at WTO. Government of India finalizes arrangements for 30 crore COVID-19 vaccine doses of Hyderabad-based manufacturer Biological E. Japan pledges additional $800 million to COVAX facility. NASA announces 2 new missions to Venus to examine the planet's atmosphere and geological features. And India's Tokyo Olympics kits unveiled. Prime Minister holds review meeting on preparedness. In the wake of COVID-19, we appeal to our listeners not to lower their guard and stay safe and protected by following these 4 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene, and get vaccinated. For providing COVID-related information and guidance to the people, national helpline numbers 011-239-78046 and 1075 are operational. And now the news in detail. US Vice President Kamala Harris spoke to Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other world leaders on US global allocation plan of COVID vaccines on Thursday. Ms. Harris notified each of the leaders that US will begin sharing the first 25 million doses of COVID vaccines to their respective countries and others as part of US administration's framework for sharing at least 80 million vaccines globally by the end of June. She reiterated that the administration's efforts are focused on achieving broad global coverage, responding to surges and helping as many countries as possible who requested vaccines. All world leaders agreed to continue working together to address COVID. In a tweet, Mr. Modi deeply appreciated the assurance of vaccine supplies to India as part of the US strategy for global vaccine sharing. He also thanked Ms. Harris for all the support and solidarity from the US government, businesses, and Indian diaspora. He added that they discussed ongoing efforts to further strengthen India-US vaccine cooperation and the potential of our partnership to contribute to post-COVID global health and economic recovery. Meanwhile, briefing media virtually on Thursday, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said government is making all efforts to augment availability of vaccines in India, whether through enhanced production in the country or through supply from abroad.
Government of India has been making all efforts to augment availability of vaccines in India, whether through enhanced production in the country or through supply from abroad. We remain engaged with US vaccine manufacturers like Pfizer, Moderna and Johnson & Johnson as part of this effort. We are separately also engaged with the US administration to ensure that necessary components and raw materials for vaccine manufacturing and production in India are readily available and that the supply chains remain open. This issue was taken up most recently during the visit of External Affairs Minister to the United States. It is in our mutual interest to combat the global pandemic by expediting vaccination efforts. As regards the US government announcement of making available vaccines to other countries, we are awaiting further details on this.
Meanwhile, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla has said that India is working with several other countries in the World Trade Organization on a targeted and temporary waiver under TRIPS to ensure timely and secure access to vaccines for all. He said India is also looking forward to World Health Organization's approval for India's indigenous vaccine Covaxin manufactured by the Bharat Biotech. While addressing at the WHO's Southeast Asia Regional Health Partners Forum on COVID-19 on Thursday, Mr. Shringla said India is part of the discussions with major vaccine manufacturers like Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson and Moderna about sourcing and possible local manufacturing of their vaccines in India. He said India has also helped to expedite the introduction of Sputnik V vaccines. Highlighting the efforts of the Ministry of External Affairs in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, the Foreign Secretary said that the ministry has acted as the global arm of the government of India's Empowered Group to procure essential raw materials and medical supplies for COVID-19.
Meanwhile, the Health Ministry has finalized arrangements with Hyderabad-based vaccine manufacturer Biological E to reserve 30 crore of COVID-19 vaccine doses. The COVID-19 vaccine of Biological E is currently undergoing phase 3 clinical trials after showing promising results in phase 1 and 2 clinical trials. The vaccine being developed by Biological E is likely to be available in the next few months. Now let's take a look at the coronavirus updates from around the world. Britain is hosting the health ministers from the group of 7 G7 countries in Oxford on Thursday. A G7 report on progress in efforts to improve health in developing countries will also be published. British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said that equitable access to coronavirus vaccines will be at the top of the agenda during the two-day summit. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga has pledged an additional $800 million to COVAX facility, aiming for a fair distribution of coronavirus vaccines worldwide. The announcement came at an online vaccine summit which Japan co-hosted with the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, an international group that promotes vaccinations in developing nations. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, on Wednesday said that it had reached an agreement with vaccine manufacturer Moderna to supply their international vaccination efforts against the novel coronavirus. The vaccines will be supplied to UNICEF's COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access COVAX facility. Bahrain has begun offering a booster shot of the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine for some people 6 months after they received 2 shots of China's Sinopharm vaccine. Meanwhile, Vietnam authorities have said that the coronavirus, which was initially thought to be a combination of the Kappa and Alpha variants that originated in India and the UK, is not a new hybrid. It has turned out to be part of the existing Alpha variant. This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Welcome back to the World News. External Affairs Ministry on Thursday said that India remains steadfast in its efforts to ensure that fugitives are brought back to India to face justice. Replying to media queries on fugitive Mehul Choksi, Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said he is currently in the custody of Dominican authorities and certain legal proceedings are underway. He said India will continue to make all the efforts to ensure that he is brought back to India. Meanwhile, commenting on the de-escalation process with China at the LAC in Ladakh, Mr. Bagchi reiterated India's call for an early disengagement.
Process of disengagement remains unfinished. The two sides have agreed that in the interim, they would maintain stability on the ground and avoid any new incidents. It is our expectation, therefore, that neither side should do anything that is not in keeping with these understandings. An early completion of the disengagement in the remaining areas could lead to de-escalation of forces in eastern Ladakh, which would hopefully lead to full restoration of peace and tranquility in the border areas and enable overall progress in the bilateral relationship.
The third edition of the Sustainable Development Goals SDG India Index and Dashboard 2020-21 was released by Niti Aayog on Thursday. In today's Hotspot section, we take a closer look at the development with an exclusive interview with Ms. Sanyukta Samadar, Advisor SDGs.
The third edition of the Sustainable Development Goal India Index and its dashboard has been released by the Niti Aayog today. This is developed in collaboration with UN in India, and this index measures the progress at the national and at the subnational level in India's journey towards meeting the global goals and targets, and it has been a successful advocacy tool to propagate messages like sustainability, resilience, and partnership. Ms. Samadar, can you tell us a little bit about how have the states performed, who are the top performers, and which are the states that are lagging? What are the key takeaways of this report that has been launched today?
Niti Aayog today launched the third edition of the SDG India Index. This has become the measuring tool for the SDGs for the entire country, particularly because Niti Aayog has the mandate to oversee the SDG implementation, monitoring, and the supervision for the entire country. So we began this journey in 2018, and since then, the SDG India Index has become the mainstay for assessing the progress of the states and the union territories. And I'm very happy to say here that over the last 3 years, we've expanded, we've refined the index, which began with just 62 indicators covering just 39 global targets across the 13 goals at that time, to the present edition, which covers all the 16 goals with an analysis of goal 17, which is partnerships, with 115 quantitative indicators. So the refinement has happened, the coverage has expanded, and also our statistical systems and the data coverage and periodicity has also improved over the years, with 80% of our indicators sourced from the periodicity line between the last 2 years, from 2019 onwards. So coming to the results, because I think that's the most important thing that people are waiting to hear. So we categorize states into 4 categories, with aspirant being 0 to 49, performer being 50 to 64, front runner 65 to 99, and 100 being achiever. So definitely one of the best thing is that no state or union territory is in the red or the aspirant category, and the number of states which have increased in the front runner category is very heartening. In 2019, only 10 states belong to the front runner category, which is green, and 12 more states have joined this category, with Uttarakhand, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Mizoram, Punjab, Haryana, Tripura, Delhi, Lakshadweep, Andaman, Nicobar Islands, Jammu Kashmir, and Ladakh. So these states were, in the last year, they were in the yellow category of performer, and now they have gone to the front runner category. Needless to say, the top 5 states are congratulations to the top 5 states. Kerala retains its position at the top category. Himachal Pradesh and Tamil Nadu have tied at the second rank. Andhra Pradesh, Goa, Karnataka, Uttarakhand, they have moved up their ranks and they've gone to the 4th rank, followed by Sikkim and Maharashtra. Definitely the states which need to do a lot more, let me say Chhattisgarh, Nagaland, Orissa, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Assam, Jharkhand, and obviously Bihar, which again remains at a score of 52, which is the lowest as of now. But apart from the movement of the states and the progress which the states have shown, basically all states have improved in their scores. Some may not have improved their ranks, but it's heartening to know that all states have improved their scores if you see the report. What is interesting is at the national level, what is it that we see? Because your question was exactly also as to where do we see India? So definitely there has been a progress from 2019 to 2021 in terms of 6 points. There's been an increase from a score of 60 to 66 in 2021. And this is particularly steered by the tremendous amount of progress that we see in Goal 6, which is clean water and sanitation, and Goal 7, which is affordable and clean energy. Definitely, logically, this is pushed, this is steered by the amazing amount of progress in not only the Jal Jeevan Mission, the Swachh Bharat Mission, but also in the area of energy by the entire program of Saubhagya, household electrification, and on sustainable urban management. So I think these areas have shown progress. This particular tool also shows us as what are the areas of our weakness which require a lot more focus, not only at the level of the states, but at the level of the center, and basically a cumulative effort. So this is largely Goal 2, which is the nutrition zero hunger, largely driven by the levels of stunting and wasting among children, anemia among women. So these are some of the critical elements which go into making the zero hunger the Goal 2, and also gender equality, which is Goal 5. So we see that these 2 particular areas are still in the red category, which is the aspirant level, where the scores are less than 49. And these 2 areas, which the entire country knows, that these have to be worked upon, and not only by the government, because these 2 particular areas, they take a whole lot of effort from the entire society, require a whole of society approach and synergies across departments and governments in order to show remarkable progress in the coming year.
Definitely, Kerala, Himachal and Tamil Nadu have retained their top positions, and you've also told us about areas where we are still not performing very well. Now, 2 of these things that you mentioned, the nutrition, zero hunger, and the gender equality thing, can you share with us, if you've got a score sheet in front of you, which are the states which are performing particularly at a lower level, and which are the states which are relatively better? And what are the kind of interventions it will take for India to achieve progress on these 2 goals? These are challenges that have been further aggravated by the pandemic, don't you think?
Yes, Ruchika, you're right. And that is why we see that Goal 2 and Goal 5 still remain in the red zone, which is an area of concern. So let me focus on the zero hunger part. In our entire framework of SDGs, what actually goes into zero hunger is largely what is the gross value added in agriculture per worker. Then adolescents who are anemic, again, children, stunted, children underweight, pregnant women who are anemic, and the agricultural productivity. With these components, what we see is the top performers in this are definitely Kerala, Goa, Punjab, Mizoram, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh, who are in the front-runner category. But the cause of concern is definitely the states who are in the aspirant category. 11 states, in fact, are rated in that score of 0 to 49, which is the aspirant category, with Jharkhand being at the number of 19, which is the lowest. Bihar, again, 31, second lowest. Chhattisgarh, 37, and Meghalaya, 37. I could tell you that the last 4 states, if we see in that order from the last, would be Jharkhand, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Meghalaya, Assam. So these are some of the states which require a lot more focus, particularly in these areas of women and children who are suffering from anemia, underweight issues, stunting, and wasting. And definitely, the pandemic has, so interventions definitely are the kind of interventions that have come up with in terms of the National Food Security Act and the additional food grain which has been allocated and the additional money which has been allocated in terms of direct benefit transfer. These are some of the key interventions which will show some impact in the next year itself. Now moving over to gender equality, which is Goal 5. This has been a traditional area of concern since 2018 and has always been the goal which has always paired in the red category and has been a cause of concern for every stakeholder here. What I would like to say here is that the Goal 5 talks about women's participation in the economy, the pay structures, the equality, the gender parity in pay, women's participation in the political arena, and also the kind of security and safe environment that women have. So some of the indicators which crucially go into Goal 5 is women's control over operational land holdings, then things like crime and control over family planning, women's participation in the legislative assemblies and in managerial positions in companies, rate of crimes against women, again, the gender differences in the male-female salary gaps and labor force participation rate. So what we have seen here is, although there has been an improvement from last year in terms of the scores rising from 42 to 48 in Goal 5, however, it requires a lot to be done. And some of the states who are doing well in Goal 5, and none of them are front runners, none of them are in the green category though. Some of the states are in the performer category, in the yellow category. Chhattisgarh on top, Kerala, Himachal Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh on the top 5. And however, the states which are right at the bottom here would be Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Tripura and Rajasthan. So these are some of the critical states which are again at a very low score beginning from 25 to 39, if I may give you just the range of scores that the lowest states have. So amongst the various states of India, there's a huge gap, but it requires a collective effort, and not only it requires policy effort and more so behavioral and social effort in terms of improving the position, not only in the political arena, but also in the economic, financial and the health arena. So these were the critical concerns in Goal 2 and in Goal 5.
One of the things that NITI Aayog, this whole dashboard and the India Index does is it encourages an evidence-based policy making. Now, I would like you to talk a little bit about how states can have some sort of an interstate learning. What can they learn from each other? And is that platform also being provided by NITI Aayog? What kind of policy interventions are you suggesting based on the findings of this index?
This is just a beginning. When we come out with the index and what it helps in terms of doing it, it also kind of puts into place what are the critical areas of each state, what are the things that are working in some states which other states could learn. It actually provides a very beautiful arena for peer learning and to see what are the good practices which are working in, let's say, nutrition in the southern part of India, which could be replicated or customized in the northern states of India. So what we do with this index is it's just not the end of the process. It's in fact the beginning of the process, and it entails a lot of engagement. So I have to tell you this, that in the last 1 year, we have our team, we have visited around 12 states immediately after the lockdown opened last year, from September till April this year. So what we do is we personally engage as a team, we engage with the state governments, and we conduct a 2-day workshop in each of these states. And that is where we try to come up with dedicated and customized reform action plan, reform interventions, which the state could use in order to plug those gaps. Now, these reforms could be very simple things like plugging the HR issue or some procurement issue or some simple legislation, some simple rules which could be kind of just framed by the state government. So these are the learnings, and these reform action plans is something that we pick up from our visits and from our engagement with the different states, where we try to understand as to how things are addressed in a particular region. Let's say how the problem of schools at the time of pandemic was being addressed in Gujarat. That became a learning for how some of the schools could manage in Uttar Pradesh. So some of these cross learnings are very interesting, and this is what we take to the states. But we also work extensively and intensively with the state governments in order to prepare the reform action plans based on the diagnostics that come out from this entire gamut of data we are able to generate through the SDG India Index. So this is one of these highest forms of evidence-based policy making, where we bring in the evidence, we show it to the state governments, and from there we try to devise these policy interventions, these policy tweaks, which we work along with the state governments, and then it's obviously up to the state governments to kind of own it and then kind of implement it.
Do you think that health is going to get much, much bigger space in the Sustainable Development Goals? And overall, which direction do you see this evolving in the coming year?
The goal 3, which deals with good health and well-being, that has definitely become the focus of the entire country. Let me just say not only the country, but the entire world, given in the last 2 years. A lot of focus has gone into it. The energies of the entire state has gone into it, let me say. Not only the finances, the energies, but again, in the SDG framework, the goal of good health is marked by certain established things which are again globally accepted, and they are part of the UN resolution, which deal with a whole gamut of things ranging from maternal and child health to per capita expenditure on health, and again, things like communicable, non-communicable diseases, and the entire health infrastructure. So it's a very holistic kind of and very comprehensive goal which covers the different ranges of health, not only the health inputs, the health infrastructure, but also the health-related outcomes. With the kind of parameters that are incorporated in Goal 3, there has been a remarkable improvement from 2019 to 2020, which is 61 to 74. That's a remarkable improvement. I believe that with the current focus on the health systems, this will continue to improve, because now the entire machinery is garnered towards improving the system, the health infrastructure, the health outcomes because of the pandemic.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today.
Thank you so much, Ruchika. I would really request our audience to not only read the report, which is on our NITI Aayog website, but also to definitely visit our SDG India Index dashboard to have a feel of it. The entire data, it's very transparent. All data, all indicators, everything is in the public domain.
NASA has announced that it is sending 2 new missions to Venus in order to examine the planet's atmosphere and geological features. The missions are due to launch between 2028 and 2030. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said the missions would offer the chance to investigate a planet they haven't been to in more than 30 years. Venus is the second planet from the Sun and the hottest planet in the solar system, with a surface temperature of 500 degrees Celsius. The Da Vinci plus Deep Atmosphere Venus Investigation of Noble Gases, Chemistry and Imaging mission will measure the planet's atmosphere to gain insight into how it formed and evolved. It will also aim to determine whether Venus ever had an ocean. The second mission, Veritas, will map the planet's surface to understand its geologic history and investigate how it developed so differently than Earth.
The Sensex today climbed to settle above the 52,000 mark, while the Nifty surged to finish near the 15,700 level. Both stocks gained more than 0.7% amid mixed global cues. The rupee appreciated 18 paise against the UN's currency. A report from the Business World.
The Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange rose 383 points or 0.74% to close at 52,232. Nifty at the National Stock Exchange also added 114 points or 0.73% to end at 15,690. In the global equity markets, Asian shares traded mixed and settled below recent 3-month highs. South Korea's Kospi rose 0.7%, Japan's Nikkei 225 climbed 0.4%, and Singapore's Straits Times added 0.1%. On the other hand, Hong Kong's Hang Seng plunged 1.1%, China's Shanghai Composite Index declined 0.4%. European shares were down in intraday trade. Oil prices hit their highest in more than a year. In intraday trade, Brent crude prices were trading around $71.30 per barrel. Back home, gold prices gained around 500 rupees at the multi-commodity exchange for June contracts, even as gold prices fell in the international bullion markets. Gold was trading at 49,650 rupees per 10 grams. Silver prices, however, declined 960 rupees to trade at 71,720 rupees per kilogram for July contracts when reports last came in. In the forex market, the rupee strengthened 18 paise to finish at 72 rupees and 91 paise against the US dollar. This is Lalema Aneja Dang for AIR News.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday chaired a meeting to review preparations for the Olympics. Mr. Modi said the wishes of 135 crore Indians will be with nation's youngsters who are participating in the Olympics. He emphasized that from vaccination to training facilities, every need of the sports persons must be fulfilled on top priority. Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Kiren Rijiju unveiled the Team India official Olympic kit on the occasion of 50 days countdown to Tokyo Olympics. Meanwhile, the head of the Tokyo Olympics 2020 Organizing Committee has again dismissed suggestions of cancelling the Games amidst speculations and doubts among city governments. The Olympics are scheduled to start on 23rd of July. In the French Open tennis, Indo-Croatian duo of Rohan Bopanna and Francois Cougar advanced to the pre-quarterfinals with a straight set win over Americans Francis Tiafoe and Nicolas Monroe. In men's doubles, the unseeded pair of Bopanna and Cougar defeated their rivals 6-4, 7-5 in the second round. In the women's singles, top-seeded Australian Ashley Barty withdrew with a hip problem during a second-round match against Magda Linette of Poland. The Australian pulled the plug while trailing Linette 1-6, 2-2. In the men's category, Roger Federer is safely through the third round, overcoming Salid 6-3, 2-6, 7-6, 6-2.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Washington Post writes that 3-time Olympic champion Kerry Walsh Jennings fails to qualify for Tokyo. Wall Street Journal reports that cryptocurrency Dogecoin set to begin trading on Coinbase Pro. The Guardian carried the headline, Minneapolis removes barricades to reopen George Floyd Square to traffic. Sydney Morning Herald writes that Singapore is ready for Australia bubble despite uptick in cases. The Himalayan Times reports that Nepal government responds to UK tabloid story on Nepal variant and declares no such strain is active. A quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to US Vice President Kamala Harris over telephone, discuss strengthening of US-India vaccine cooperation. Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla says India working with several countries on targeted and temporary waiver under TRIPS at WTO. Government of India finalizes arrangements for 30 crore COVID-19 vaccine doses of Hyderabad-based manufacturer Biological E. Japan pledges additional $800 million to COVAX facility. NASA announces 2 new missions to Venus to examine the planet's atmosphere and geological features. And India's Tokyo Olympic kit unveiled. Prime Minister holds review meeting on preparedness. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnava Jan, by artists from Italy.
Para
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.